September 9th, 2025. Dusk gives way to night as a Su-24 screams down a rain-slick runway, with two heavy cruise missiles suspended under its wings. Far above, reconnaissance platforms and decoy missiles move into assigned corridors, while encrypted commands pulse through an underground operations center. The objective is to destroy two headquarters that coordinate a massive Russian mechanized offensive and sever the enemy's nerve centers. Everything turns on timing and deception. A single window when overloaded air defenses will be looking the wrong way. Russian formations from the 41st Army and the 20th Corps are gathering for a concentrated push toward Pykrok, assembling tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and artillery in depth. Those units do not move without a network of coordination, command posts, intelligence feeds, and logistics hubs that process battlefield data and order fires. Two industrial sites inside Donetsk have become those nodes. They host senior staff, relay encrypted traffic, and funnel supplies. Removing both at once would not simply damage a target, it would break the timing and flow that make a mechanized assault possible. This operation does not aim to attack the tanks themselves. It aims to sever the brain that gives those tanks purpose and direction, disrupt the command chain, and artillery loses timely sensor input. Air defenses cannot synchronize with counterfire, and fuel and ammunition convoys stop where they are. A collapse of coordination spreads faster than a battlefield defeat, because machines can be repaired, but decision loops cannot be replaced in hours. On the map, the danger looks straightforward. Two highlighted sites, concentric rings of defense, and a clear window for intervention. The planners, therefore, set a single objective of neutralizing both command nodes simultaneously, creating a communications blackout and denying the Russians the ability to synchronize their offensive. Execution will require exact timing, layered deception, and the willing acceptance of high operational risk. Signals analysts noticed an unusual spike in encrypted traffic on channels normally reserved for senior staff. That anomaly alone would not have justified a strike, but analysts quickly traced the data flows to two industrial complexes inside Donetsk. Electronic intercepts showed sustained, high-volume exchanges that matched the cadence of battlefield coordination rather than routine factory chatter. Imagery intelligence filled the remaining gaps. High-altitude shark drones loitered for hours above the city, feeding continuous optical streams to the operations center. Analysts watched vehicle rotations, escort patterns, and the arrival of higher-ranking officers at both sites. The visual evidence matched the electronic picture and removed any lingering doubt about the facility's roles as active command hubs. Planners then layered human reports and movement logs on top of those feeds. Traffic timings, personnel manifests, and logistic manifests converged to show not just presence, but intent. Orders were being issued, targets assigned, and supply timetables set. That convergence turned a suspicion into a targetable fact and allowed commanders to plan a synchronized blow rather than a risky guess. With confirmation secured, mission designers replaced uncertainty with variables they could control: timing, deception windows, and weapon sequencing. Intelligence had done its job. The operation would now depend on flawless coordination between sensors, decoys, and the strike aircraft that would close the kill chain. Planners built the strike around one pilot and two long-range missiles carried by a single Su-24, each warhead engineered to punch through reinforced command centers. To pull Russian attention away from the bomber, mission designers launched jet-powered Peklo missiles first, aiming to force sheltering and chaos inside the target buildings. A swarm of kamikaze drones flew patterns meant to flood radar consoles with dozens of false tracks, while low-flying UJ-26 Beavers struck power cabinets and backup UPS rooms to produce short, crucial gaps in local communications. Each supporting element had a narrowly defined job: create noise, open a corridor, and keep the defenders guessing until the strike aircraft reached its firing point. Each element had a distinct role and a precise timing slot. The Peklo missiles would arrive first to punch holes in the defenders' rhythm and force localized sheltering. The medium-altitude kamikaze group would then generate multiple false tracks and sudden maneuvers across radar screens, compelling operators to chase phantoms. Meanwhile, Beavers flying low aimed for electrical cabinets and auxiliary UPS rooms to produce short-lived sector blackouts, where targeting data would flicker and die. All of this was orchestrated to produce a narrow corridor of degraded defenses that the Su-24 could exploit. Coordination depended on a single, secure command link. An underground operations center in Kyiv served as the conductor, receiving live feeds from Shark reconnaissance drones, processing electronic warfare inputs, and sending synchronized go-no-go commands. Every airborne and ground asset received minute-by-minute updates to maintain the intended sequence. Timing errors would collapse the plan. A single early Peklo or a delayed blackout could close the window permanently. Before the operation, crews did the hard, hands-on work that decides success or failure. Technicians ran live simulations to check missile burn profiles and approach corridors, while pilots practiced the low-altitude runs in simulators and rehearsal sorties. Electronic warfare teams timed their jamming and frequency-hopping drills until the windows lined up with the flight plan. On the night of the mission, every unit launched only when the clock matched the rehearsals and the command center gave the single word: go. Which part of this plan would you trust most to ensure success? The distraction provided by decoys, the short, targeted blackouts that blind sensors, or the missiles that make the final strike? Pick one and explain your reasoning in the comments. Planners prioritized confusion over destruction during the opening minutes of the operation. The Peklo cruise missiles were the first visible actors, arriving along predictable arcs that forced Russian crews to respond to sudden, high-priority threats. Those strikes and near misses created immediate sheltering and a surge of defensive chatter, drawing attention away from subtler moves elsewhere. At the same time, kamikaze drone swarms executed patterns designed to overwhelm radar screens. Their unpredictable altitude, changes, and abrupt turns produced multiple false tracks, each demanding verification from operators who had to decide which blips were real and which were decoys. This constant uncertainty slowed decision cycles and increased the likelihood of misallocation of interceptor assets. Lower and quieter, UJ-26 Beavers targeted electrical cabinets and auxiliary UPS rooms that feed radar and command consoles. The objective was not to plunge entire regions into darkness, but to force brief, sectoral interruptions in data and power. Those short failures fractured the seamless flow of targeting information and introduced timing gaps measured in seconds, but those seconds were vital. All of these moves ran from a synchronized script controlled by the Underground Operations Center in Kyiv. Operators in that center watched live feeds and adjusted timings in real time, shifting one asset's window by seconds to maintain pressure on multiple nodes at once. That choreography of visible strikes, electromagnetic noise, and tactical blackouts did not destroy the air defense network. It degraded its cohesion just long enough for the strike aircraft to enter and complete its task. The Su-24 left the runway under a low, rain-dark sky with two heavy missiles tucked beneath its wings. The pilot steered the jet into a low, treetop-level profile that followed river valleys and hollows to stay below radar horizons, using terrain to hide his approach rather than speed or stealth alone. Above the aircraft, planners set multiple threats in motion to create genuine confusion across different sectors. Jet-powered Peklo missiles hit along separate approach corridors, while kamikaze drones maneuvered in irregular patterns, each presenting its own track and signature. Russian operators had to evaluate a flood of contacts that did not match any single predictable profile, and that decision-making load delayed coherent responses along several axes at once. Detection still occurred. An AWACS long loitering overhead picked up the Su-24's heat signature and passed a track to a nearby long-range battery. The pilot reacted immediately, pulling into a sharp climb while releasing chaff and flares, timed to break the incoming seeker's lock. Those countermeasures created just enough confusion for him to return to low-level flight and continue toward the launch corridor. Shark drones circling above the targets fed live imagery to the command center, confirming that key personnel were present and that command rooms remained active. With that visual assurance, Kyiv sent the single-word clearance to fire. The Su-24 crew aligned the aiming point, armed the missiles, and released both storm shadows into the narrow window that planners had engineered through layered deception. After release, the pilot had only seconds to escape. He dived back into the folds of the terrain and raced away beneath the treetops, trusting that his timing and the supporting strikes had created the corridor he needed. Behind him, radios and radar consoles erupted with conflicting reports, and ahead, the missiles sped toward hardened structures that intelligence had already marked as the enemy's operational brain. The mission passed from rehearsal into real consequence, and the next moments would decide if the plan had worked. The first storm shadow dove into the industrial complex, linked to the 41st Army. It entered through a ventilation shaft, confirmed by reconnaissance, and detonated deep inside the bunker. Concrete walls trapped the blast, and the command staff working underground never had a chance to react. 40 seconds later, the second missile hit the metallurgical plant, used by the 20th Corps. The warhead punched through the upper floors before exploding in the center of the command wing. The structure held for a moment, and then folded into itself, leaving a plume of dust and flame over the site. Both targets went silent at almost the same time. Radios cut out. Data streams stopped. Screens across the front line went dark as the command network disappeared in a single minute. The headquarters that were supposed to guide a major offensive now existed only as wreckage settling into concrete basements. Thousands of Russian troops still wait for instructions that will never arrive, staring at radios that no longer connect them to anyone. If you want to understand how strategy, timing, and nerve can change the course of a war, subscribe and stay with us. Share this video with someone who wants to see how intelligence wins battles. And tell us in the comments, if you were planning the next move, where would you strike to keep the momentum alive?